Hey, glad to see you're back. You're watching the Passing the Buck video, where I'm going to show you how to provide permissions to an account for some administrative tasks, and you don't have to give away all of your authority and thunder to do this too. So, in this video, we're going to be talking about how to give someone else the ability to reset passwords. Because, I mean, let's face it, you got more stuff to do during the day than to stop 8,000 times and reset a password. Then I'm also going to talk to you about some built-in groups that Microsoft has provided to do a lot of this different administrative stuff, where we can give out some of the administrator permissions without allowing them to be administrators, because an administrator account can be a great thing and it can also be a very dangerous thing as well. And a lot of times we want our IT staff to be able to do stuff, but we don't want to make them administrators because they can cause too much damage. And it's also a bit of a security risk. And then I'm also going to talk to you about how to install this thing called the RSAT, Remote Server Administration Tools, to a Vista client so we can provide the people that we give these rights to, these permissions to, easy access to get to these different server components. So, let's face it, why should you really have to do all the work at the end of the day? When you start thinking about what it's going to take to manage this network, you realize that as time goes by, you're just not going to have all the time in the world to do this stuff like resetting passwords. So fortunately, you have Jamie, right? And in order to free up your time, what we're going to do is we're going to provide permissions to Jamie's account so that he can reset passwords and do other administrative tasks. So in order to do this, we really have two options, and I'm going to go through both of these with you. The first one is using the delegation of control wizard. Now, if we want to give a user account a very specific kind of permission, this is the best way to do this. But then there's also some built-in groups that we could add an account to so that they could have the ability to do more administrative tasks without having to be an administrator. So let's take a look at these two items. First of all, the delegation of control wizard. You're only going to use this particular tool when you want a user or a group to be able to do one or two simple tasks, like, resetting passwords. It's fairly limited in what it can actually do in terms of providing permissions, okay? But it's a super easy tool to use. It's a wizard, okay? There's very little complexity to it. Before we jump over to the server, though, I want to talk to you about something that's going to provide more power, though, and that is these additional built-in groups that Microsoft has provided for us. Because the delegation wizard just can't do everything. So here's some of the groups that I want to talk to you about that I think are going to be very useful to you. First of all, we have obviously the administrators group. And well, the administrators group is exactly what it sounds like. And the administrators group can do everything in our permissions and abilities list that you see over here and more. Okay, this is not the whole complete amount of stuff that the administrators can do, but basically administrators have access to everything. Now, the account operators is going to be very useful to us here when we're thinking about giving more permissions to Jamie to do stuff like manage the user accounts. So you see that we have these three columns checked for the account operators. So if we made Jamie a member of the account operators group, he could do this stuff. He could create, delete, manage user and group accounts. He could see all the user information and he could reset passwords. He can also log on locally to the server and shut down the server, so if he needs to do that, he could go ahead and do that as well. There's also the server operators. This is also going to be one of those things that maybe eventually we'll think about providing to Jamie. Now, the server operators have some user stuff that they can do, like read all the user information, but you notice that they cannot create and delete and manage user accounts. So that may or may not be something we want to give him access to, but the server operator also allows this set of stuff like sharing directories, creating, deleting, and managing printers, backup files, restore files, log on locally, and shutting down the system. Now, if let's say we just want Jamie to be able to do backups, well, that's okay. We just make him a backup operator. But if Jamie is already a server operator, if we decide to go ahead and give him that level of permissions, then we don't need to, Print operators, this is kind of a duh statement, but this just allows the folks to do printer stuff. But printer operators also can log on locally to the server and shut down the system. So there's a little more vulnerability in that role than maybe what a lot of folks care to. So here's what I want you to stop and think about, okay? Before you start giving permissions to different people in your network, different users, stop and think, how much trust do you have for and with this person? Now, if you trust them inherently and completely, well, then you just go ahead and make them an administrator, right? But chances are we don't want to give them necessarily that level of responsibility. Now, eventually we might trust Jamie to the point where we might make him an administrator, sure. But I mean, right now we're just starting off the network, and so we're going to at least put Jamie as an account operator, absolutely. And maybe someday we could put him in the server operators, maybe in 6 months to a year or so after we've seen what he can do and how trustworthy he is. We'll go ahead and we'll add him to that group too. So the only hitch on these particular groups is that all of these built-in groups can log on locally to the server and shut down the system. That may not be what you want. I mean, if all you want Jamie to do is be able to reset passwords, then we go back to the delegation wizard and we just give him that one singular permission. But if we want Jamie to be able to do more, and I mean, he is our IT assistant, right? I mean, he's really our junior level administrator. And so we're going to want Jamie to do more stuff than just be able to reset passwords. We might hand off a lot of the group management to him, after we start providing permissions and somebody needs permission to this one particular printer or whatever it may be, and you don't have time to do it, well, then we can let Jamie do it because he has this particular permission. He could add someone to a group. He could take someone out of a group, whatever needs to be done for that kind of thing. So I'm thinking, once we get into this, I am going to show you the delegation of control wizard, by the way, and we're going to go ahead and give Jamie just the ability to reset passwords first. So I'll show you that first. But then we're also going to try and make Jamie a member of account operators. And just so you know, if you do both, it's not going to hurt anything. It's really not. We really only get into trouble when we start denying, permissions. When we're allowing permissions, a lot of times we can do things like that fairly safely. So, all right. So now that you know the two ways to do this particular task, and since Jamie is our administrative assistant on the IT side, let's go ahead and let's get in here. Let's jump over to the server. I'll show you the delegation of control wizard, and then I'll show you the built-in groups, and we'll talk about them a little bit more along the way. All right, well, here we are back over on NYDC1, and I'm logged in through remote desktop here on client 1, just in case you're wondering where I jumped to. Now we're going to give Jamie the ability to have control to reset passwords. And so we're going to be doing that here in the NY users OU because, well, that's where our user accounts are. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to right click on NY users, and I'm going to select Delegate Control. And that's going to open up the Delegation of Control wizard. Let's move this guy over here just a little bit. I want to tell it Next. And now I need to select the user that we're going to be providing the permissions to. So I'm going to click here on Add, and I'm going to type in here J. Owens, and hit the Enter key, and now J. Owens is in the mix. I'm going to tell it Next. And now I get to decide what he's actually going to be able to do for each and every individual user. Now, notice that a lot of the stuff kind of crosses over with what we were able to do with the built-in groups too. But again, you're probably going to use this tool to provide just a couple of control items, things like, maybe modifying the membership of a group. But in this instance, we're really more interested in the ability to reset user passwords and forcing a password change at the next logon. Now, by the way, there are custom tasks that you can create, and I'll just show you this here real quick. I'll click on Next. These custom tasks have to do with going into more of the permissions that are available inside of Active Directory. So this gives you a little more power over exact attributes that you can alter in terms of the user accounts. Chances are you're not going to use this very often though, okay? So we'll click on Back. Most of the time, if we're only wanting to provide simple permissions to do a very simple task, we'll use these common tasks that are already set up for us. So I'm going to go ahead and put a check mark here in Reset User Passwords and force password change at the next logon. And I'll tell it Next. And then I'll tell it to finish. And so now, Jamie now has the ability to go in and make changes to the Active Directory users, in that he could go into the server if he's able to log into the server and have access to Active Directory users and computers, go in and reset passwords just like you could. But he can't do anything else. We've only provided him one permission. And I suppose that's okay, But really, what we want to do now is I want to show you these built-in groups. And you notice that there's several. And I mean, there's a lot more than what I just talked about. I just talked with you about the ones that are the most common to use and probably the most useful. But we're going to make Jamie a member of account operators, and this is a very simplistic operation. You just double click on account operators, you go to the members tab, click on add, and now I'm going to type in here J Owens. And now he is a member of the account operators. And so he has the permission, all those permissions for the account operators that we just talked about back in the slides. So again, a very easy procedure to give someone the ability to manage accounts and such. It's also very easy to provide people the ability to modify passwords and enforce those changes of passwords when users log on. So here's the kicker though. I mean, right now at this point in time, we have provided Jamie with the permissions to go in and do these things, but how does Jamie get to the server? Can Jamie just log in? And well, technically, yes, Jamie could just log in because remember, the account operators have the ability to log on locally onto the server, and they could actually go in and make the changes. But most of the time, Jamie's going to be sitting at his desk or running around. So I tell you what, I'm going to show you another way that we can give Jamie remote control. Now, some of you are thinking, well, hey, why don't you just give him remote desktop, right? I mean, we could add Jamie in here to the remote desktop operators group as well and provide him those permissions, but there's actually a little more secure and easier way to make this happen and give Jamie the ability to what he needs to do. Let's bounce on over to the slides, and I want to talk to you about it a little bit. It's something called RSAT. So this RSAT, Remote Server Administration Tools, what it's going to allow us to do is take a Vista client and install those MMCs, those Microsoft Management Consoles that allow us to go in and do stuff to the server. We can install the same tools on Vista and then use them to connect to the server. And assuming that that user has the appropriate permissions, like what we've just given Jamie, then they'll be able to, from sitting at their own client machine, like Client 2, which is where we're going to go to next, by the way, they can just open up the MMC and make the changes that are necessary. So it's actually a pretty cool thing, and the nice thing is that it installs on Vista, and we don't have to allow them full access to the server at all times. Now, it is super easy to install and download, but there's a little bit of a hitch, and I'm going to show this to you right now. You have to go into your control panel and enable the tools so that they're available for Jamie to actually have access to. So tell you what, let's go ahead and let's move over to Client 2. I want to show you how to download and install RSAT. It's super easy. And then how to configure so Jamie actually gets to use those tools to do password resets and stuff. All right, well, here we are over on Client 2, as you see. And let's go ahead and we're going to log in actually as Jamie. Okay, so that way we get to see it all the way through from his perspective. Now remember that user account control really doesn't allow us to install software. However, since Jamie is not subject to our desktop lockdown policy, we don't have all of those group policy settings applied, but currently Jamie is subject to that user account control thing. So we're going to have to use our SuperCoach login to actually finish the configuration. But before we all get into that, let's go ahead and let's open up an Internet Explorer, and we're going to go to Microsoft.com, and we're going to download these tools real quick. We'll scoot right on over here, and I'm just going to type in RSAT for Vista. And we'll go find this here real quick. Scroll down just a little bit. By the way, there are two versions of RSAT. There is a version of RSAT for the 32-bit version of Vista, and also an RSAT version for the 64-bit version of Vista. So make sure that you are installing the correct version. All right, here we go. And you notice that the link is highlighted because I actually went down and found this earlier. So this is initially the Microsoft Remote Server Administration Tools for Windows Vista for 64-based systems. Let's go and let's check and see what version we're actually running on this particular machine. I'm right-clicking on the computer and going into its properties. And, oh, nope, looks like we're on a 32-bit operating system for client 2. So this one's not going to get the job done. Let's scroll down here a little bit and let's see. Here we go. Microsoft Remote Server Administration Tools for Windows Vista 32-bit. Yep, that's what we need. So we'll select that one and notice that we need to validate our version of Vista. Oh, okay, that's fine. We'll click on Continue. And now we need to install a little ActiveX control here. And we'll install the ActiveX control. And it'll take just a second. Oh, look, it's user account control. Yeah, we might want to think about actually disabling this for Jamie. You know, and depending upon how much we trust him. So I need to log in with the SuperCoach account here for the installation. And we'll click here on Install. And there we go. Okay, so now we have validated our operating system, so now I can go ahead and download this particular item. I'll go ahead and I'll click on Save. And I'll save this guy down. And I'll save it to downloads. That sounds good. And away we go. So you notice here that my download speed is pretty fast. Shouldn't take very long at all. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so now that it's completed, I'll go ahead and click on Open. And look, it's security. Okay, that's fine. Yes, we want to allow. And now we need to type an administrator password. So again, we have to use SuperCoach in order to make this happen. And now it's going to go ahead and start to download the updates. I go ahead and close out of Internet Explorer now because we're finished with that. I'll go ahead and tell this guy OK to install the software. Yes, I accept the license and all that good stuff. Now it's going to take just a little bit for this thing to install. So I'm going to pause the video while it's doing its thing, and then as soon as it's wrapped up, I'll be right back. Alright, so you see that the installation is actually complete. That's cool. I'm going to click here on Close. And now we need to actually go in and configure RSAT for Vista so that Jamie can actually use it. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go to the Start menu, and we're going to go to the Control Panel. And now I'm going to go here to the Program section. And I'm going to go up here to the Turn Windows Features On or Off. So go ahead and click on this link. And once again, it's going to require administrator permissions. So I'm going to go ahead and put in SuperCoach and tell it OK. Alright, so that brings up our Windows feature options here. I'm going to scroll down and let's put our Remote Server Administration Tools items smack dab here in the middle. I'm going to go ahead and expand the Remote Server Administration Tools option because you see we have the option to install both feature administration tools and role administration tools. Let's go ahead and let's investigate the role administration tools. Here's what we're looking for, the Active Directory Domain Services tools. I'm going to expand that and only put a check mark here in Active Directory Domain Controller Tools because this is the only one that Jamie needs. Now I suppose I could give Jamie access to all the rest of this stuff, but it's really not necessary. I think I'll go ahead and I'll throw in the file services because eventually he might need that too. And it's not going to hurt anything for it already to be configured. Alright, so we've gone ahead and we're going to, by the way, the Active Directory Domain Services tools is going to install several different snap-ins, not all of which Jamie is going to need, at least at the outset, but it will install the Active Directory Users and Computer snap-in that we absolutely do need for him to have access to. So I'm going to go ahead and tell this OK, and now it's going to take a little while for the system to configure this tool. So yes, once again, I'm going to pause the video, and as soon as this guy is done configuring that particular tool, I'll be right back and we'll start recording again. Alright, well, that particular feature in the installation has wrapped up now, so I'm going to go ahead and close the control panel. And next, let's go ahead and let's give Jamie a real easy way to get to this particular feature on his desktop. So I'm going to go to the Start menu, and I'm going to type MMC, Microsoft Management Console, and let's go to the File menu and add and remove Snap-in. And what we're going to do is we're going to give Jamie access to the Active Directory users and computers here. We'll go ahead and we'll add that guy, and we'll tell it OK. And so now when I activate here Active Directory users and computers, and since I'm logged in as Jamie still, remember, I'm not logged in as SuperCoach, right? I'm logged in as Jamie. Since Jamie has access as an account operator, he has access to this particular set of tools. I'm going to go into globalmantics.com. I'm going to go into the New York OU and New York users. I'll go into the ops section real quick, and I will right-click here on G. Gibbs, and let's see, could I reset his account? Yep, I could reset his password without a problem. I could do a lot of other stuff too. You know, I could add him to a group or whatever, because remember, Jamie is a member of the account operators, right? So now Jamie has the ability to access this tool as he needs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this custom management console to his desktop so Jamie can get to it real easy. So we'll go to File, we'll go to Save As. I'm going to save it to the desktop, and I'm going to call this Users and Computers Console. Just so Jamie knows what it is. And I'll go ahead and I'll close this out, and now Jamie can come back and get to this again anytime he needs to. And again, that is going to save us some time as administrators, and it'll free us up to do the stuff that we need to do, and also provides Jamie another level of responsibility as he starts to work his way up to be a trusted administrator, probably someday in the not so far future, if we pick the right guy for the job, right? Well, that's it. You saw that these techniques are really pretty easy once you know where they are and what's available to you and what you can do in terms of delegating some authority to different people so you don't end up doing every single thing as a system administrator. Remember, no one is a Superman or Superwoman. Everybody needs a little help eventually, especially if you are in charge of a very large network. All right, so let's go ahead and let's bounce back on over to the slides, and let's talk through our wrap-up, and then let's move on. All right, it is now time for some big fancy words, and so we'll start off with the delegation of control wizard, right? Remember, that's a utility that allows an administrator to grant busy work tasks to other user accounts. Built-in groups. We learned of that. These built-in groups are groups that come as part of the default Server 2008 installation. You don't have to do anything to create them, just install Server 2008. And that provides more administrative permissions than what the delegation of control wizard can allow. So this is one of those things that's kind of a sheer hedonistic convenience for you as an administrator. You don't have to go in and tweak a whole bunch of group policies or anything. You just add them to a group, and then they have the permissions that they need. But then they also need to have some way to get to the server and actually do the tasks you assign to them. And one of the easiest ways to do that is the RSAT, Remote Server Administration Tools. And remember, that's just a bunch of Microsoft management consoles that come in a Vista flavor that allow you easy remote management of servers from your desk. And by the way, as the administrator, you can also install those to your desk too. If you don't like doing the whole remote desktop thing, you can just use the RSAT for Vista as an administrator. Just make sure you install and configure all of the tools that you think that you'll probably need. All right, so after viewing this video, you should be able to use that delegation of control wizard to provide the ability for specific users to do small scope administrative tasks like I showed you. You should be able to describe the differences between the 5 most useful built-in groups. You should also now be able to add a user account to a built-in group for higher level administration tasks and also sheer hedonistic convenience. And then also you should be able to install and configure RSAT for Vista. So you can provide easy access to a particular set of tasks that you want one of your IT staff to perform for you. All right, so now that we have taken a little bit off of your plate as the administrator, in the next video, I'm going to start talking with you about how to create backup solutions, because in doing over 10 years worth of computer work as I have in various capacities, I have learned one true thing, and that is that computers break, and usually at the worst possible time. So I'm going to talk you through a little bit about how to back up and create solutions for your domain controller specifically, okay? So that way, in case your DC blows up, you can get it back. So I will see you in that next video.